Hey y'all, Caleb here. So in today's video, we're gonna go through a couple of different ways to create a Git repository. Uh, you can do everything you need to do with Git through command line interface. Um, you know, initializing repos, making commits, changes, merges. But I prefer using tooling or GUIs to do it for me in most cases. Um, and the first way I want to show you how to do it is on GitHub's website. If you're not familiar with GitHub, it is one of the larger and more popular sites that will host your Git repositories for free. So after you log in, you can go to your repositories, which is where we're at, and then click New, and you'll be taken here. And what you're going to want to do is give your repository a descriptive name. So we're going to be redoing my personal website, so we're going to do Caleb C. Wells. But as you can see, because the repo name and my owner name are the same, this is actually used in Git to do a readme for my profile, kind of like a web page. But we'll go through this in a future video. So what we're going to do is we're just going to give it Caleb C. Wells site, right, to make it unique. You can do description, not required. If you want it to be public, so anybody can look at it and see your code, you leave public checked. If you just want it to be you, you're going to, of course, select private. This didn't always used to be the case. Before GitHub was purchased by Microsoft, you actually used to have to have a subscription to be able to do private repositories, so it's nice to have that option. But in this case, we're just going to leave it as public. When you initialize a repository, you can choose to add a README file, which is basically just describing what this repository does, similar to the description up here. Adding a gitignore file, which Git uses to ignore files that you do not want to commit to your repository. And that can be build artifacts, or you may have some keys that you don't want to push up there. There's a bunch of different stuff, and we'll take a look at a gitignore file in a few minutes. You can also choose how you want to license this. If you want it to be open source, there's MIT license, so there's a number of options, and we'll link to these in the description for the video. But for right now, we're gonna leave all those alone. I'll show you how you can do these using a different tool. So what we're going to do is we're going to create the repository. And now you'll see it's created the repo. And if you want to basically make a copy of this, it gives you the instructions on how to go about it. And this is all command line stuff, right? So you can copy and paste this into console window or PowerShell, and get a copy of it locally. Also, if you're using GitHub desktop, you can click this and it will be pulled right into that application. Okay, so the next option I want to show you is Git Kraken. there are a number of free third-party software programs that help you manage your GitHub repositories or your Git repositories. It doesn't have to be GitHub. Gitkraken is one of those. There's also Source Tree, and as I mentioned, GitHub Desktop, and there's a few others. I like Gitkraken. It's got a clean interface, and it's worked well for me in the past. So that's what we're going to use. Gitkraken also allows you to connect to your GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, Azure DevOps logins for where your repositories are stored. Keep in mind, Azure DevOps and GitHub Enterprise will require that you use Gitkraken Pro. So we're kind of going the opposite direction now. We're going to start a local repo, and it will be added to GitHub. So we're going to click Start Local. You can't do local only, but I'm actually going to associate this one with GitHub, and we're going to select our account that we've already added in, and we're going to give it a unique name similar to what we did in GitHub. You can do a description, its access, whether you want to clone it after initializing, where you want to clone it to, and in this case I'm putting it in my personal folder for development, and then the full path to the repo, which you'll typically use the name. Again, you can select the default branch name. In GitHub they use main, but you can change that to master or whatever else you like. And here's where your gitignore file comes into play. You'll see you have a lot of different options specific to what framework or language or operating system you're working with. For me, I usually use this Visual Studio template. And again, you have an option to show what your license is, similar to in GitHub. As you can see, you have Apache, MIT, open software. You can even do it unlicensed, but that's not required. And if you're going to be using large files in this repo, you can initialize with large file support. In this case, that's not going to be something we need. So we have all of the settings we want. So we're going to click Create Repository and Clone. And what it's going to do, and this is one of the nice things I thought about using Gitkraken, is it's going to initialize it and open it up. And you see we got this checkbox here. If we go and look at our repos and we do a refresh, it actually committed our first version of our repository, which includes our gitignore and a default readme. So that's nice. It's one less step that you have to go through. In our previous video, we mentioned using a Visual Studio Code as the default editor for gitignore files. And so when I double-clicked on this example, that's what it pulled up in. Your gitignore files are, like I said, are going to be different depending on the programming language you're using or frameworks or whatnot. This one is definitely Visual Studio specific. These splats are basically saying if this file exists, ignore it. These are basically saying if this folder exists, whether it's capitalized or lowercase, ignore it. You'll see that there are a number of different files to ignore. In this case, it's ignoring lock files based on this naming convention. So you can go through there. There's a lot here because there are a lot of things that you can be using in Visual Studio or that tie in. But it's usually very good at catching anything that you wouldn't want to commit to your repository. And that looks like that just about covers it for creating a new Git repository. I'll have links to all the resources used in this video, as well as more information on licensing and readme files and gitignores in the description as well. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave me one, and I'll definitely get back with you. And appreciate y'all taking a look, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Bye, y'all.